Good morning, friends. This is Biniam on the Checkin In podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Today is episode number 112. We continue our slow progression towards the end of the year. I missed a couple of days last week just because the schedule got pretty tight in the morning. Sometimes I just like my sleep, and these are some early mornings. But I'm glad to be back here again with you on this Monday morning. Starting off early again, it's another busy day I have planned at work as a truck driver. That's what I'm doing at the moment right now. For those of you who are still asking about Uber, yes, I am still signed up with Uber. I just haven't been driving for some time because I need to get my vehicle insured all over again, and I need to make some money to do that. And so here we are in that season of life where things sometimes just don't go as you had planned, and yet we still make the best go as we can of it going forward. But I'm thrilled to have you guys join in again for a few moments, however long you're able to pop in as we do what we do here on the Bin Checking In podcast and pursuing a better version of ourselves. Three key pillars that I love to recite every episode because I find they are a foundational element to this podcast. And I find tremendous benefit in rehearsing why this is still important for me. Or are, I should say, number one, this episode is designed to help me and you guys, hopefully, grow more aware of yourselves. This first one is a super exciting one for me. Super exciting because goodness, I don't think most of us know ourselves the way we would like to know ourselves. There's so many components and elements about ourselves in life and in general that sometimes are super baffling. Like, why do we do this? Or why is this important to us? Or how has this evolved in such a way that this is significant? Number two is the kindness piece towards ourselves as we go through a process of change, because we all need a bit more of that in our lives. And of course, finally, the happiness piece, because who doesn't love being happy? But not happiness at the exclusion of all the other emotions, but happiness in addition to happiness in the process of experiencing all the other emotions that come along in life, especially the ones that we find really challenging and difficult to navigate through. So those are the three key pillars that sustain us here on this podcast. And I usually go about exploring these three pillars by asking self reflection questions about myself. And as I share my responses with you, I hope to also inspire you to do something similar in your own context. One of my dear followers, longtime followers, messaged me over the weekend saying, I would like to do what you do and practice a little bit more for myself. And that for me is tremendous tremendous encouragement when I hear someone else is saying, this is so important for me too that I want to follow and do likewise. I get super thrilled about that. How do I measure success, by the way? This is not the question for today, but I know sometimes I'll have folks coming in saying, your significance doesn't seem to be evident. And usually, most would measure significance in the online social dynamic by seeing or measuring how many people follow you, how many people are listening in, how many people are tuned in. Now, that is one way that many find compelling, but it's not one that I find compelling. And so those stats don't weigh as much as me. I want to go on record saying that whether I have 5 people in the morning versus 5 million people who are waking up in the morning or whenever to listen in, that isn't sort of how I measure my credibility. I measure credibility by how much am I giving by way of helpful content that enables them to move on to the next stage in their life. That for me is far more important. Neil says, how to get up in the morning. If I understand your question, I think, Neil, you're asking, how do you get the energy to get up in the morning to do whatever you have to do? Because waking up is tough, right? I would say, in my experience, finding something that you're supremely interested in, something you're passionate about, something you feel is worth you losing sleep over, is how I do it. When you have to get up for things that you're not as interested in, it's more challenging, right? And so for me, doing this podcast, for example, is one of my commitments in life. I want to prioritize this in my experience and share that with you guys. And hence why this for me is a priority. And so I love what I get to do here. The investment is great, and I don't see a lot of the output, but I imagine it's out there. And so I want to continue bringing the best that I can by way of my insights, my experiences, my thoughts on various things. And so that's what for me gives me a reason to say, this is worth losing sleep over. I'm definitely going to make space and time for this. Grapefruit, good morning. How are you? Just found you on my For You page. I've watched you a few times before. Love your wisdom and heart. Thank you, Jordas. And that's really gracious of you to say. And that encourages me. So thanks for coming back and tuning in for a little bit again. Friends, let me get to today's question before I wax eloquent. I'm well too, Grapefruit. Thank you for asking, and I'm glad to see you again. Um, the question we're answering today: how do you establish boundaries with others? Listen up, friends. This is a really important one that so many of us struggle with. How do you establish boundaries with others? Really, really important component here of our social existence, really. And in the absence of maintaining boundaries, Alex Barkley Smith says, good morning. It's my birthday today. Hope you are doing well. Alex, happiest of birthdays to you today on the 13th of December. Amazing. Happy birthday, Alex. I hope it's a fantastic one today. Thanks for tuning in, and I so appreciate you being here. And yeah, I hope you have a memorable day. I'm glad you exist. That's something I've taken on saying, Alex, especially when people are celebrating their birthdays. It gets me to reflect about their existence, and what a great way to celebrate it on the day when you remember when you came into existence. I'm glad you exist, Alex. I don't know you as well as I'd like, but I think I can tell you are good people and we would be good chums. Should we be able to live together? So happy birthday to you, my dear friend. How do you establish boundaries with others? That's the question we're answering. I was just finishing saying that in the absence of this, things can go south really fast in the context of our social connections. I think it's imperative and important and crucial that you're so welcome, Alex. It's so important that we learn how to communicate our boundaries. But before you can even communicate boundaries, it's really important for you to know what your boundaries are, which gets us to the first pillar of our podcast, and that is our our awareness of who we are and how we are made up. It's kind of like saying, hey, what is our blueprint like? Good morning, friends coming in. I see you guys on the TikTok as well. Hello. So, what does that look like for us to be aware of who we are? That's a really helpful starting place in order to for you to start establishing what your boundaries in life are. To know how to communicate your boundaries, you have to know how it is that you kind of tick, how you navigate, how you make sense of your world, right? UE82, I'm well. How are you? Nice to have you here. So, I came up with this question this morning because last night I was having a really, really, it was a great conversation from one of my close friends, and they were asking, saying, so, Binyam, how do you communicate your boundaries with others? They were saying, you seem to be able to communicate really well. Do you ever have trouble communicating your boundaries? And this individual, they were having some challenges in communicating some boundaries with some people in their life, and they were wondering, how do you do it? And so that's why I thought this question may be a helpful one for us to explore together. How do I establish my boundaries with others? Well, first of all, like I was saying, how well do I know myself? And I'd be asking you the same question if I was to be having coffee with you across the table. And you're asking me the question, I'd be asking, how well do you know yourself to be able to know where are your hell yeses and where are your non-negotiables? What are the things that are like a definite yes? What are the things that are a very clear no? And how well can you communicate those? Because sometimes we may know these things, but we just don't know how to communicate them. Let me see if I can walk you through those in the next couple of 20 minutes. So I start off with knowing me. Knowing me is really critical. And I think most of us know ourselves well enough, even if we haven't spent time trying to articulate or understand how well do I know me. And why do I say this? Say that you're in the midst of hanging out with friends or people who are important in your life. Let's just take that as an example. I think most of us know the experience when something happens in that connection that doesn't feel good and you don't feel like being really close with this person. In fact, you start feeling like that sense of I want to preserve and feel safe, and so I'm going to detract. Maybe they said something that triggered you. Maybe they did something that didn't make you feel safe. Maybe they inadvertently suggested an idea that hurt your feelings, or maybe it was intentional that they were trying to hurt you or do something that really affected you adversely. In such settings, I think those are the clues that we experience that something happened here that didn't feel good. Something just transpired that you're like, I wish that hadn't happened. Could we redo that moment again? Something along those lines is, in my perception, I think what happens in general. Now, as that happens, those are some really helpful clues. This is going to happen in every single connection social in your life. Why can I say that with such decisiveness and certainty? I can say that because every single one of us as human beings, we're kind of messy. Every single one of us. This may be someone who you think is never going to cross your boundaries. This may be someone who you believe has good intentions for you. This may be, in some way, a connection that you say, I have such high estimation in this connection that I won't ever have to worry about anything going south or wrong in this connection. Newsflash, from my perspective, every single connection in your life is going to have this kind of point of tension or experience of struggle. There's something that's going to happen where it doesn't feel good. It comes across in a way where you're like, something is amiss here. That is just the nature of what it means for us to be human beings. Hey, BTN, how are you? Good to see you. Sammy, thanks for the roses. Super appreciate you, my dear. This is going to happen, I would say, in every single connection. It's even going to happen with me. Some of you, I may be one of your trusted voices in life. And yet, I'm not beyond believing that at some point I may say something that you'd be like, ooh, that came across a little harsh, or I don't know why you said that, or this seems to be out amiss from what I expected from you. In every single connection you have with another human being, there's going to be this element where you're going to hurt or be hurt. And it's just what it means for us to be human beings. It's basically us being true to ourselves in the way that we're going to be messy in some way. Are you that really cool Uber driver I saw on my For You page way earlier this year? Most probably. I'm guessing I might be that driver, most likely, because that's been how most on TikTok especially have come to know me, as that Uber driver who's able to, I don't know, do what I do. So yes, glad to have you back on here. So that's what I'm reflecting on when I think about this element of the certainty that we have to prepare that in every connection in life, something is going to go downhill. This is why I would argue every single one of us needs to learn how to be able to communicate our boundaries. Do you still do Uber, Michael? I still am planning to do Uber. I'm just not doing it at the moment because I have to get my vehicle insured again. It's not on the road right now. And so, yeah, hopefully I'll be back on the road again. But for the time being, I am working as a delivery driver for a trucking company here in my city. And so that's what I'm doing. Can you teach me how to tie a bow tie? I'd love to. User 17. As you can see, I haven't worn one for a few days. I wore one over the weekend, but at this new job I'm starting, I just didn't want to like wear it right off the bat. But I still plan on making that a staple of my itinerary. So it's important for us, like I was saying, to be able to learn how to communicate our boundaries because in every single relationship in life, there's going to come a point, if not many points, where we need to reiterate and communicate our boundaries. Haven't seen you in a while, Dr. Dre. Nice to see you back again. And so this is where this question comes from. How do you establish boundaries with others? If you're able to be aware of who you are and how you feel certain things are important in your life that you want to communicate to others, then you're kind of ahead of the game this way. You're kind of ahead of the curve because you're able to know what it is. And when you know that certain things or values or boundaries have been set and they've been broken, you can communicate them again saying, this is really important. What kind of headset is that and where did you get it? It's really cool. Thank you. I got this headset when I was teaching English. It has a little microphone on it. I don't need to use that because I'm using a microphone here as well. I got it at a computer store back in Saskatchewan when I was living there. So yeah, it's a fairly simple one, but thank you. It works really well and I love it. Yeah, I don't know if I can even tell you off. Here, let me just see here. I'm trying to see what this is called an Onikuma gaming headset. That's what it looks like right there. I don't game, but that's what I use. May I ask why you are doing a live at 5 a.m.? Great question, Dr. Dre. I was doing lives later on in the morning, closer to 9 a.m., but I have a new job that I'm doing right now as a truck. Like I drive a 5-ton truck delivering supplies to restaurants around the city. And so my start time is super early in the morning, like around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I have to commute there. It takes about an hour. And so that's why I'm fitting my podcast that I do every morning, which is live streaming at the moment at this time. And then others who usually enjoy watching it can watch it later on in the day as well. So that's why it's just navigating early times like this. From Sweden, Herminator, how are you? Nice to see you. Glad to have you back again. So friends, let me get back to the point. All this love I'm receiving this morning. So appreciate you guys. So appreciate you guys. I was just saying, good for you, says Dr. A. I would have given up on it myself. Well, for me, this is one of my priorities, and I want to make time for it. Sometimes I do sleep in. Like last week, I had a couple of days when I slept in. But this is an important part. This is something that I feel is worth losing my sleep over. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something I want to continue to put out there because I think there's benefit for others who are finding it interesting and helpful for them. So I want to be consistent in that. You're the nice Uber driver, right? Herminator, I am. That's one of the ways I've been known. So thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. To know your boundaries is a really important starting point. I love this content. I'm gonna tune in as often as possible. Awesome, user 17. I'm glad you are. But as you get to know what your boundaries are, sometimes in the moment when they're being broken, as was the scenario with my friend who was sharing with me, you are, love your videos. Thank you. You are, I found the experience as well, and I was reflecting the same to my friend. Sometimes in the moment when you're in connection with people in your life, especially those that you really admire and respect and love having in your life, and when they break those boundaries that you may have set with them, or they may have done it unknowingly, and something's gone wrong in that connection, it's really difficult in those moments to be able to communicate and say, something just happened here that I don't like, and we need to talk about it. It's really difficult because we don't have the language. We haven't figured out what to say in the moment. And when it happens, we're like, oh, something terrible just happened, but I don't know how to communicate this without seeming like a real mean person, right? That's one of the ways that we go about trying to think, how do we communicate these things? And we just don't have the tools at the moment. So it's like, you feel kind of stuck and you feel like you don't have any recourse to be able to address it. And so you go away feeling defeated and you have that icky feeling inside. It's like, something is amiss here. And I wish I could attend to it, but I don't know how. Hence why our question, how do you establish boundaries with others? Here's what I told my friend. I said, listen, I have this struggle too. I know every relationship is going to have its, tough moments. From Sydney, Australia, Zane, good to see you, my friend. Every relationship is going to have its tension point. Let me just say that. That's my opinion, been my experience. Every single relationship is going to have that. I'm always planning for a connection that I have, no matter how much I enjoy it. At some point, I'm going to need to address boundaries. I'm going to need to address expectations. Those are really important components that, for me, make a friendship, a relationship really solid. And that's what I want to do, is to protect that relationship by establishing what those boundaries and expectations are. It sounds like really mean thing to do, but it's actually the best thing one can do for those connections, in my perspective. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what is it that is really important for me to see this friendship or relationship going forward. For example, if I'm interacting with someone and I find out a habitual liar, I'm not going to penalize them for being a liar. I'm just going to say, this is a boundary for me. If you're going to lie in this relationship, it's not going to serve our friendship well. And so I'm going to give you some expectations that you're not going to lie with me. If you lie with me, here are the consequences. We probably won't be able to hang out or build more of this friendship. I'm going to communicate that at the outset. Now, say you didn't have access to all this, but it happens in the midst of the connection there that you see, oh my goodness, they're lying to me. And as they're lying to you, you feel terrible, but you don't know how to express that frustration or that sadness or that hurt in the moment. And you walk away thinking or feeling defeated, and you're like, oh man, that was not good. Here's what I would suggest in knowing oneself. It's okay to walk away from that and get some time to think through what just happened. That's a really important place. It's okay to get some distance from that relationship, saying, hey, I'm going to need to just get some time on my own here to think through some stuff. And it's all right for you to go and process what it is that you experienced that didn't feel good in that relationship, number one. Get that time away, get by yourself, and start thinking and maybe even writing or journaling down. Here's what went down. Here's why it didn't feel good to me. And here's how I wish it had gone or happened, right? That space away is really going to be helpful for you, dear friends, so that you can process and think for yourself and know what it means for you to respond to that scenario. That's the awareness piece. It's really important starting place. Take that time away and think through and try to put to words what happened and why it didn't feel good for you. That's totally legit. After you've become aware of why that didn't feel good and why that's important for you to communicate that, the next step is now to go back to this individual and say, hey, listen, here's what went down. Here's why I didn't really resonate with it. And here's what I'm asking in the follow through for this to go in a better way. That's the next step. Do you see that? That's really important next step there. Really important next step is to go back and look for that opportunity where that individual say, hey, can we spend some time together talking about something that's important to me? I want to sit down face to face with you. I encourage you to do this face to face, not through written or phone, because the more access you have to this person so that they can see all of your communication, the better. If it's over the phone, they can't see your visual cues that you're giving communication wise. If it's through writing, they can't even hear you. But if you do it face to face, they can hear you, they can see you, they can hear you, they can see you, they can see the full expression there. That's the most helpful part. And then establish those boundaries with them, saying, the other day when you said this or did this, this is how I experienced it on my end, and here's why it didn't really feel good, and here's why I'm bringing it up with you, because I care about our friendship and I want to have this connection with you in a really good way, but we need to set some boundaries. Please do not lie to me in the future. Please do not do X, Y, or Z, because this is a really important part for me to experience something good in this relationship. Friends, the best way that you can safeguard and enhance and make your connections, your friendships, your relationships stronger is by becoming aware of what your boundaries are and then knowing how to communicate those boundaries in a really good space mentally. Sometimes we experience our expressing our boundaries when we have hit the final point of our patience. But here's just one final tidbit that I found really helpful that I'd really encourage you to do this. As you're communicating and understanding what your boundaries are, and as you're communicating them to those that are important and those people in your life who you need to communicate with them with, also include in those boundaries the consequences of when those boundaries are broken. Why do you want to do this? Because if you don't do this, if people keep on breaking your boundaries, they don't realize what happens if they break the boundaries. But when you include the consequences of breaking your boundaries, then you're also able to move through in caring for yourself. There ought to be consequences when people break boundaries. For example, when I don't pay for, like when I park in a zone that needed payments, real pain, and I get the consequence. The consequence is that I'm going to have to pay a penalty now for it. Yes, that's happened to me before. That's just kind of how things go in life. In the same way, when you set your boundaries in life, ensure that you're also including consequences to the breaking of those boundaries. Consequences could look like saying, hey, I'm going to give you a 3-strike count. That's kind of what I usually work with. And I'll use that example I've been using. If you lie to me, first of all, I communicate saying, my boundary is that you're not going to lie to me as we communicate. That's a really important thing. When you lie to me, it breaks the bonds of trust that I'm trying to build with you. I'm going to give you 3 more chances as a way of a buffer zone. If you lie to me 3 more times and I catch you in 3 more lies, this friendship is going to come to an end. I want you to know I don't want that to happen, but this is the consequence. And I want you to know that so that you know at the outside. When I do this, what tends to happen is I'm giving them communication in advance that says, I only have this many freebies to give you as you try to become that better person in this relationship in the way that I'm asking you to. And as you're attending to these um, consequences, the third time you're out, kind of thing, that saves me from having to get frustrated. I don't want to be frustrated when I'm communicating to my friends, my boundaries. So that's why it's really important to know how much can I handle. For me, it's usually a 3 strikeouts sort of dynamic. I say, I'm going to give you 3 more chances. On the third time, I'll have said we have tried enough, and I'm going to move to the implementation of my consequences. And that may be that we're not going to be able to hang out anymore, which is a sad thing. But that protects me from getting frustrated because I've communicated to them saying, hey, I'm going to give you as many chances as I can give. And here's what that looks like for me to be gracious. When this happens, I'm really sorry, but we got to move on. That consequences are really important inclusion. So don't forget to include that as you're thinking about how do you establish boundaries with others. When you communicate those boundaries, be respectful, be kind, be gentle, but follow through and stick to your guns there. It's really important. This for me is a really important element of what self-care looks like, especially as I connect with other people. It's my way of teaching others how to treat me. I don't want to put up with crappy stuff. I don't want to put up with crappy relationships. And so this is my way of saying I deserve something beautiful. But knowing my worth takes me being aware of myself, learning to be kind to myself and saying, no, I deserve something really good in this. That's important. Did you drive Uber now or not? Ram, no, I haven't been driving for the last couple of months. I'm hoping to drive again in the future. Just right now, it's the season where it's not working out in my favor, but I look forward to driving again for Uber. Friends, I hope this episode has been helpful in knowing how to navigate this really uncomfortable topic of establishing, communicating, and implementing your boundaries with consequences included. That's really important inclusion, I would say, in this. I've talked to you how my process goes. I'd love to hear your process too, if you have something that also works for you. I hope you have a fantastic Monday. See you tomorrow for episode 113. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for being you, real inspiration. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate you too. Bye, guys.